Hey guys, originally this was supposed to be part of the same video where I discussed Splatoon and Side Order, but that segment ended up so long that I decided to cut them into two different videos. I only say this because the next clip would be really awkward without an intro, so enjoy the video. The next game I played was an actual game, Princess Peach Showtime. There's been a lot of talk about this game in terms of its difficulty. Is it too easy? Is it leaning towards too young of an audience? And while I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I struggled a whole lot with this game, I do think there's some difficulty in 100%ing it. If you're just trying to beat every stage, that's going to come really easily. But if you're going for all the sparkle gems, I think there are 10 to 5 in every stage. It actually gets less as you climb higher and get to further levels. But there are 10 to 5 in each level to collect, and getting all of them is where the tricky part comes in. There are also some little extra challenges after you clear a floor. After you beat its boss, there's a little challenge that'll show up that will unlock a new dress. And those challenges can also be pretty tricky, like the Sword Fighter one. That took me quite a few tries. I mentioned the new dress, so I should mention cosmetics quickly. You can change Peach's dress in this game, as well as Stella's ribbon, that's her little helper. So you can change Peach's dress mostly to pink dresses, though there are a few special colors in there, based on the different outfits that she dons and the different types of plays, as well as just some pretty patterns. And that's a pretty cute cosmetic thing. The only weird or kind of funny thing about it is, since Peach changes outfits a lot in this game, there are a lot of times where you're not wearing the dress, so you don't really get to see all the dresses very often, and there are a ton to pick from, so that's slightly unfortunate. But you do get to see them in boss areas, and of course while you're perusing the theater itself. So you can still customize Peach, and Stella's ribbon is always going to show up in the customization you choose. So you don't always get to see Peach's dress that you choose, but it's still nice when it's there. This game follows a very simple format. You go into a stage play and you don some kind of a new wardrobe. For example, the very first one it gives you is the Sword Fighter. But you can also be a cowboy, be a ninja, be a baker, and very simple controls. Each costume pretty much has just like one little attack it can do, and that's it. One little thing with one button, but it still is engaging. It mostly comes down to the set design and the stage itself to provide the entertainment with the self-controls. And well, they do it well. It's much like a real play where the set design in the environment is very important in your enjoyment. And I was a bit concerned either that there wouldn't be enough transformations or that they wouldn't do enough with transformations. I was kind of worried that there would just be like a single stage for each transformation. But there are 3, and they do get pretty interesting with their usage of every form Peach takes. I'm glad that they don't just limit it to one, and I'm glad that they actually expand upon what you can do with each wardrobe with each new play. My complaint with this game isn't actually its difficulty, it's tedium, if you go for that 100%, which of course isn't necessary. But mainly because everything here is a stage play, that means that things actually move like a play. So whenever you go into a play, you'll go up to, I think they're called Theeds? Yeah, Theeds. The Theeds will, they'll tell you, here's our problem, and then you advance, and, they kind of guide you through. So there are often like little cutscenes where they're kind of explaining the story of the play to you, which is fun the first time through. But then you go back in. If you miss sparkle gems and you have to replay the level, which is surprisingly easy to do, then you have to go through all of that over again. and there's no checkpoint system here. So if you miss something, you've either gotta, in some cases, die if it's a possibility, or just restart the entire level. Like, what I mean by that is that there are different screens, and once you advance past a screen, you can't go back to the next one. So if a level has like 7 screens and you need a star or a sparkle gem on screen 6 and you miss it, you get to screen 7, there's no way to go back. You have to restart the entire level now. And there are some cases where it's difficult to even know if you're going to get the sparkle gem. In particular, I think it's the second baking one. The baking one is just a bunch of, like, a couple of mini games where you're baking cakes, decorating cakes, and baking cookies. But in the second stage, there's the cookie baking game. You either have to beat it before the timer runs out, or you don't get all 3 sparkle gems. And that is very annoying because you want to use every single second you have to try and, fully beat this minigame, to 100% this minigame, I should say. And if you don't do it, it advances you to the next screen and you have to start over and redo the entire level up to that point. And that's basically right before the very end of the level. There are just a lot of moments like that where you have to very slowly go through a level. You can't really skip through it to get through it faster either. You just kind of have to let the stage play out in order to get back to where you want to be. So I wouldn't recommend 100%ing this game. It also does something I really don't like in any game, which is your reward for beating the game is more collectibles added. After you beat the game, it adds 3 new collectibles to every single stage in the game that you have to go back through. And that's the one thing I didn't get done in this game. I 100%ed the base game, but the post game, I'm not going back through every single level to get every single new collectible. I'm sorry. But yeah, when it comes to charm and just being a Princess Peach game, I'm really happy with what this is. I love Peach's voice lines in this game. I love her attitude, and how she fully embraces every single role. Also, just the fact that she's good at every single role is just really funny. Plays into the whole idea that princesses are good in everything. But yeah, this is a very charming game. I can recommend it. I just can't recommend 100%ing it. Oh yeah, I guess I'm still doing the ranking. I am putting Side Order above Princess Peach Showtime because whereas Princess Peach serves in this game, in Side Order, everyone serves. We got our last game before the 1,000-Year Door, Animal Well. Initially, I wasn't going to play anything between Princess Peach Showtime and the 1,000-Year Door. But I had thought that this game looked really cool from what I'd seen of it in indie directs and such. And then it came out and it was getting basically perfect review scores everywhere. And so I finally decided, you know what, it's decently cheap, at least compared to the $60 I usually spend on games. And I'll be able to beat it pretty easily before the 1,000-Year Door releases. I'm gonna get it. So Animal Well is a Metroidvania, and I would call it an open world Metroidvania. There are items you need to beat the game, but the order you get those items in and where you go to use those items is completely up to you. And just because you get an item in one area, it doesn't mean that's the only area where it's useful. You may not need it to complete a different area with a different item, but you can probably use it to find some secrets in that area. And I think that openness is what makes this game so great, because your items don't seem that useful at first. When you first get them, you don't really know what you can use them for, if anything, sometimes. But then you come across a puzzle where you can use them, And well, that's one thing you can do with them, but then you'll kind of just stumble into other ways to be able to use them. I think there's really only one item I can think of in this game that has one specific use, at least amongst the main items. And like, other than that item, everything else is really versatile in what you can do with it. This game has a bunch of crazy secrets, not all of which I got. I beat the first 2 layers, as they call them. I got every egg, but when it comes to anything beyond that, they're really cryptic and difficult to figure out. And to tell you the truth, by the time I got to a point where I would have started doing that, I was ready for Paper Mario to release, like within the next day or so. Animal Well is just a great puzzle game with simple items that have surprisingly complex and deep uses. The atmosphere is incredible. There's so much to discover. Feels like you can do just about anything you think of being able to do with your items. So yeah, it's just a really pleasant Metroidvania, and I recommend going in as blind as possible. It's gonna take the middle spot right now in my games list. I like it better than Princess Peach Showtime because I feel like, you know, there's a bit more gameplay focus here as opposed to that game. Well, a lot more gameplay focus, whereas Princess Peach is, you know, more so just about spectacle. This game is really more about, you know, puzzle solving and thinking, really putting your mind to the test, which Princess Peach Showtime isn't concerned with. And that's not a bad thing for that game, but it is a good thing for this game that for me makes me enjoy it more. But Skyward is still my favorite. I just really like how endlessly replayable it is, and how ridiculously stacked you can get your character. I have not started Luigi's Mansion 2 because I want to get these videos done before I do that, so I guess I better record my thoughts on the Thousand Year Door. I've of course heard for quite a while now that this is the best Paper Mario game, that it has the best story, the best combat, that the set pieces are all so much better than Origami King, and that it has so many different unique character designs that are just way better than having a bunch of generic Toads. And after finishing it, yeah, that's pretty much all true. That being said, I don't think it completely invalidates Origami King as a game. I still really love Origami King. I will get to why in a little bit. Apologies if I spend more time complaining than complimenting this game, because I feel like the compliments kind of speak for themselves. The battle system is extremely well designed. I love the partner system, both in and out of combat, how they have unique abilities outside of combat, but then they also have their own, of course, movesets and everything in combat. I love the badge system, how you can find some quality of life improvements through badges, but also just improve general stats and everything, you know, increase partner health, or allow you to swap out a partner without using their move and stuff like that. And yeah, in terms of just the story, this is a very well-written game. It's on par with Super Paper Mario. A lot of people are going to argue it's objectively better. You know, I might have to replay Super at some point, because right now I'd say for a Mario game, those two are even for me. They got probably even stories, because those are... This and Super Paper Mario are probably the two best stories in any Mario game. I gotta eventually beat Bowser's Inside Story too. I never did beat it as a kid. So one day maybe I'll beat Bowser's Inside Story, and we'll see how those are the top three, definitely. See how those three compare. Oh yeah, and I went in expecting Vivian to be my favorite character, but it ended up being Goombella. Vivian is a very close second, but Goombella just has an opinion on literally everyone, and it is very, very funny. But as I alluded to, it's not perfect. I had heard that how the backtracking in this game was not great, and how the remake does fix it by adding that pipe room in the ruins with the pipes to all the different areas, and that definitely helps a lot. But there's still one problem that just makes it not perfect. The Trouble Center. in the Trouble Center, you go and you can accept a bunch of different requests, and then you have to go and talk to somebody to actually start the request. But you can only request, or you can only accept one request at a time. Why? It's 2024. Why? There's so many times when there will be a quest that takes me somewhere, and there's another quest I can start in that area. If I could just talk to that person as well, if I could just accept multiple quests at a time, why do you do this? I'm also not a fan of one way that you find these star pieces throughout the game, specifically floor panels. Floor panels you have to find just by, you kind of whack the floor with your hammer, and then you can ground pound near them to flip them over. The game calls ground pounds spin jumps, by the way. Wrong, they're ground pounds. We all know this. Like, it's always been a ground pound. Anyway, so you ground pound near them, and it flips over, and there's a star piece, which you can use to like trade in for badges to one guy. This is really annoying because you just have to kind of, if it were just in like the chapter where ground pounds are introduced and like the main hub world of Rogue Port, it'd be one thing, but it's throughout the entire game, which means like throughout the entire game, you just kind of have to slap the floor with your hammer everywhere to see if you can find a ground pound panel. And I don't know why. It's just, there's so many more convenient ways you can hide star pieces. And I feel like that's a symptom of a larger problem, which isn't really a fault of the game. It's just something that's due to Origami King being released later, having more time to reflect on the past. And while I do think Thousand Year Door is the better game, one way that Origami King is better is its exploration. It completely blows Thousand Year Door out of the water in its world exploration. I feel like there's so many times in Thousand Year Door where I would walk into a new room and it'd be almost entirely empty. Like, you know, there's a star piece hiding behind something, and that's about it for the room. And it's just really disappointing when in Origami King, it felt like there were secrets literally everywhere. Literally always something you could interact with. Yeah, I think I would give Thousand Year Door my favorite Paper Mario game award. Previously, Super held that position, followed by Origami King. But I think Thousand Year Door has a story that is on par with Super, and the gameplay is just better. I think, you know, a typical RPG battle system is just going to work better for an RPG. And while I like Super's, you know, whole platformer thing and its puzzle solving, and I like Origami King's ring battle system personally, I do think Thousand Year Door has it best. To me, the perfect Paper Mario game has the exploration of Origami King with a story and battle system along the likes of Thousand Year Door. So Thousand Year Door is currently my game of the year. Side Order is a DLC campaign, may be played in short bursts over and over again, but this is a whole adventure where every single second is handcrafted to be exactly the way it is. There's just a lot more to the Thousand Year Door as a full video game than there is to Side Order as a DLC campaign.